call of the Hogs can be heard all the way to San Francisco.
You're listening to Pod at the Palace with Curtis Wilkerson on Inside Arkansas.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome back to the show. I got to ask right off the top, how's everybody holding up out there with the portal closed? Yeah, I know Arkansas is still shopping around and, to add a piece or two that could come into play down the road. But it's the first full day since portal season really ended, since that thing closed. And there isn't a bunch of new names to at least, look up and consider the possibilities with. Every 30 seconds, you get a notification that somebody else had entered the transfer portal. We don't have that anymore. I mean, do you feel empty, naked, alone, afraid? I think I'm some combination of all the above, although I immediately became a better husband, a better friend, a responsible, functioning adult without having to consume this every waking moment of every day. It's kind of weird. I don't know what to do with my hands. I keep checking, my phone to see if another notification popped up, and it's like, bro, that month is over. Do something else. Touch grass, man. It's funny. But hey, I'm excited for what's to come on the show here. We're going to stay locked in with the regular portal and roster updates because those things are still going to come. But we're also going to start mixing in some other stuff as it pertains to Arkansas basketball and getting geared up for the grassroots season and scheduling news and all that other stuff that goes along with recruiting as Arkansas works to finalize the roster here. And I'm telling you, we're kicking it into overdrive here, expanding our content. We got some big time plans over the course of the next couple of weeks, and I'm really, really pumped about that. But with that in mind, two things today that I want to do. One, promised you yesterday that there would be, just a handful of late names that would trickle into the portal after the deadline passed, as paperwork started to get processed. There were a couple. So I want to dive in and touch on those. And then I want to do exactly what I said I was going to do, which we were going to do yesterday until I realized, I've already set up here and yap for a half hour. Let's save it. And we're going to talk about this 5th year eligibility vote that could turn the college sports landscape upside down and be a game changer for Arkansas as well. But there's a lot that goes into that. So I'm going to try to break it down the best that I can. And then we'll talk about some of the potential names available there. But as you know, the Pod at the Palace presented by our friends at the Eye Center of Northwest Arkansas. If you're tired of misplacing your reading glasses or missing the big plays during the game because you can't see what's going on, you don't get those notifications when the Pod at the Palace goes live when there's news because you can't read them. The Eye Center of Northwest Arkansas is a place you need to go check out. Your vision's essential to the quality of your life, and professional eye care is a must for you and your family. The Eye Center of Northwest Arkansas has you covered. Their award-winning eye doctors are board certified and professionally active, yet their patients talk most about how caring and friendly they are. They give you the best of both worlds with new vision care technology, plus that old-fashioned personal attention. We know that the Eye Center of Northwest Arkansas offers that custom cataract surgery and custom refractive lens exchange surgery inside their clinic location in Fayetteville. That RLE is for those folks 40 years or older who are starting to struggle with near vision. They want to get rid of those glasses or contacts, but they don't qualify for LASIK. You want to get a free screening, see if you qualify. You need to go get checked out, see if you need to get some specs. Give them a call, 479-442-2020. Check out the website, www.eyecenternwa.com for more. All right, let's get into it here. So the midnight hour came and went yesterday, and we went live, or we didn't go live. We recorded after that because we want to make sure that we got a vast majority of the names that entered the portal, just so we knew who would be available. Underwhelming, right? I mean, we talked about it yesterday, but typically the final day of the portal is crazy. It's a whirlwind. And so I think some of it is you already had a bunch of players who entered. I mean, there's over 2,000 players who became available. And then in other ways, teams might have just done a better job of keeping their big pieces last minute, So there's that. But as we said, a couple names still made their way into the portal, or it was announced as that paperwork was starting to get processed. And we started to see some of that on Wednesday morning. So a couple names that I wanted to touch on just to make you aware. Louisville, big man, James Scott. And this is a big addition. This is notable. We would have spent some time talking about him yesterday. 6'11" forward, a starter for that team, which kind of was a rejuvenation over there in Louisville under Pat Kelsey. And, they had some injuries, but this was a guy in their front court who really did I thought, a phenomenal job from him. For one of the best lob threats in the country. He dunked it 79 times last season. That was the third most in Division I basketball. Only averaged 7 points, but it was like all dunks. He did it on 75% shooting from the field because it was all at the rim. Pulled down 6 rebounds per game, had 49 assists and 30 steals as a 6'11" forward. Good player, really good player. I don't know if there's a fit there for Arkansas, but he's certainly a talent there for sure. Rashawn Agee out of USC. This is one Muss probably needed to keep, in my opinion. And I know he had a good get with Rodney Rice, and he's been out there. It's Eric Musselman, man. He's going to go out there and get his guys in the portal, right? But he lost some too. And I think this is one that hurts him low key. This is one that, in my opinion, is kind of the perfect complementary piece for somebody as a stretch 4. Just so turns out Arkansas needs one of those. We talked about several guys where I'm like, man, this one makes a lot of sense. It doesn't mean Arkansas is going to go after him, but if it was me, I would. 6'8", 230 pounds. He has a great motor, very physical, plays super, super hard, really attacks the glass, and he shot at 40% from 3 on a couple attempts per game. What else do you need, to kind of round things out? And this is all assuming, obviously we would like to see Arkansas make that big splash. We know that pool is more limited than we hoped it would be at the end of the portal, but there's still a Jameer Watkins and other guys floating around out there. But if you aren't able to go that route, just picking up a couple pieces like an Agee and a knockdown shooter, I think it would really set the roster over the top. But they're going to take their time. They're going to be patient. They're going to evaluate fit before they decide to do anything at all. And that's where we're at. And we're going to talk about some other opportunities and avenues to where they could do that. One is going to be the international market, which we're going to talk about here before the end of the week. Another would be checking out the high school ranks. I know there's been a name that's been floating around out there recently. We'll dive into some of the potential there. And then there's this 5th year thing, okay, which is what we're going to talk about in a second. But like I said, I want to talk about the last couple guys who hit the portal of note. But yeah, what is going on here? Let's turn the page maybe to our What to Watch segment presented by Bryant Technologies. And you know that Bryant Technologies is there for all your network and security services and needs. They're dedicated to delivering that high quality network infrastructure and security camera solutions. They take pride in their exceptional workmanship and commitment to keeping your business operations seamlessly connected and secure. They can help you with a little bit of everything, whether it's structural cabling, security camera installation, digital signage, or TV mounting. Bryant Technologies has you covered. They service the entire state of Arkansas and all of the bordering states. Have Bryant Technologies help you with all your network and security needs. Give them a call, 870-883-0330, or check out their website, www.bryantstechnologies.com. Okay, what to watch for? Really, if you wanted to get excited about the pool of available players, I mean, you're probably watching for this potential 5th year ruling, right? I mean, if you're looking for more pop, more juice, more star power, more drama, you probably need to be paying attention to this. Okay. There's thought out there, and there's a lot of varying lawsuits out there, and all kinds of scuttle about trying to approve a 5th year of eligibility for NCAA student athletes. Why is this even a thing? I think is the first question that should be like, where is this coming from? I mean, you've 4 years to play for the longest, or 4 seasons to play. What it's been is 5 years to play 4, unless you qualify for a hardship. But it's pretty simple, right? You go to college, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, see ya. And maybe you take a red shirt year, you get a medical hardship, or you're a graduate transfer, or a graduate student. Okay, fine. But that's always been the thing. 4 years of eligibility, 4 seasons. I should clarify there, of eligibility. Why all of a sudden is there's this talk about getting an extra one? Why are all these dudes with no eligibility hitting the portal? Well, it's because this conversation is picking up steam a little bit, right? Because what happened was you always had 5 years to play 4 seasons, but then anyone who played in 2020, 2021 got a free year of eligibility because of that COVID season. It didn't count if you played that year, right? Then more recently, the junior college ruling came down that basically you played in JUCO, those years don't count. So you've seen a lot of guys who might have started at JUCO and transferred up or whatever. They suddenly got more eligibility. They're running it back. So now in an NIL era where student athletes can now, make money in college for playing in athletics, you have older kids who, may have played anyway during COVID, and junior college players who transferred up getting to capitalize on their earning potential here with more eligibility, while everyone else who's kind of taking the traditional route is looking at that saying, hold up, whoa, wait a second. What's going on here? Right? Because I was either recruited heavily enough or, met the academic standards, whatever, to go Division I right away, or I'm just not 25 years old to where the COVID deal didn't impact me. It's not my fault, my age. And so I'm basically penalized here or limited of an extra year of earning potential when it comes by way of NIL that others benefit from. So they're looking at that going, this is not fair. This doesn't make sense. Why are the folks with the special circumstances getting taken care of, and the rest of us kind of left out here dry? And a lot of these kids are not pros. They're not going to the league, and you can tell them all the things like, oh, bro, go put the fries in the bag, man. Like go get on LinkedIn, update that resume, bro. But as outrageous as it sounds, I don't blame these kids for feeling the way that they do. Even if you're just going to go to the workforce after you finish college, if you're seeing a bunch of your peers who are getting an extra year of these NIL earnings, in some cases it's six figures, maybe more, depending on who you are. If you could have the opportunity to take advantage of that before you go take a desk job or go try to grind it out overseas or whatever, why would you not do that? Why would you not do that? I don't blame these kids. So they're going to vote, or I don't know if vote's the right word, but there's going to be a ruling here at some point about whether or not this 5th year thing is going to get approved, or if they're going to, try to move forward with it or not. But that's not going to come until they settle the revenue sharing situation, which is still not finalized. So it's going to be a little bit here before we get some kind of clarity on it. But again, what you've seen here is a bunch of players who are out of eligibility, giving themselves the flexibility in entering the transfer portal just in case. And what's interesting about it is there's a lot of difference makers who kind of make up this field here. I think it was Jeff Borzello who tweeted out that of the last 50 players who entered the portal that averaged double figure scoring at a Power 5 school, 43 of them did not have any eligibility remaining. In other words, if this ruling or bill or hypothetical, whatever you want to call it, if it passes, if it goes into effect, 43 impact players just became available that weren't there before. You know what I mean? So that seems significant to me. And we'll talk about names in a second, but first let's talk about some of the aftermath if this happens, which for what it's worth, it's based on what I've gathered, it still sounds unlikely that this is going to become a thing, but who knows? So let's talk. One, does that mean Jonas Adu and Nelly Davis will come back to Arkansas? I would place those odds at very unlikely, right? Nelly has already made his post, said his goodbyes, played in the pit, the Portsmouth Invitational out there. It's a crowded backcourt. It probably ain't happening. Okay. With Jonas, it's a little bit more interesting from his standpoint because there were rumblings that he might seek an extra year late in the season. And I can't say I'd blame him given what he went through. Now, he played in 30 games or whatever it was, but he was injured the whole year. Didn't get what he wanted to out of it. Wasn't healthy until the very final stretch of the season. So you would think about it on the surface and it's like, all right, well, if that extra year thing gets passed, would he be a candidate? A source close to him, we'll coin it that way, a couple weeks ago told me that that's not really the case and that he's turned the page from college. Now, if it gets passed, if it did become a thing, does that change things? Because everything's subject to change, right? That chance always exists. So never say never, But what I would say is I would strongly advise against banking on anything like that being a thing with those guys. Now, neither of those guys entered the transfer portal like some of these other dudes did. So technically, if they did want to come back to college, they couldn't go anywhere else, right? So there's that aspect of it. Man, if this extra year were to pass, though, it would create absolute anarchy. Think about it for a second. It'd be nuts. To me, there's only a few ways that you could go about it. One, if you didn't enter the portal, like if you fall under these qualifications and you didn't enter the portal before the deadline here, it would almost have to be like, hey, you can get your extra year, but you got to return to your last school. It feels like to me. Otherwise, it would just open the door for hundreds more to come available in the late summer. It'd be crazy. It feels like they'd also have to put a limitation on it, whether it's fair or not, but only players whose eligibility expired in 2024-25. I mean, otherwise, folks would be trying to get Connor Vanover and Kamani Johnson and whoever else out of retirement, which cool, but I mean, it's crazy. Like we can't get carried away here. This is nuts. But then the flip side of it that I think about is, I don't know. I mean, are they going to have to reopen the portal for another window for everyone if this happened, which would be a mess? But I just don't see how you could oversaturate the sport with players, allow schools to add, some of these old heads in July or something like that, and then not allow the guys, whether it's freshmen or returners or other transfers who'd already been picked up elsewhere, then not allow them, if they had certain promises or whatever, they just got recruited over because of this, you're just not going to let them explore their options? You have to, right? So it would be absolutely crazy. Like, for example, if let's say a healthy Jonas Adu came back to Arkansas because he got an extra year out of nowhere, is it fair at that point, or do you think it would stand up at that point to tell, Malik Ewan and Nick Pringle, for example, hey, deal with it? We know this dude, he played 30 minutes a game for us at the end of last season. He's familiar with the system, part of a Sweet 16 run. You guys were brought here expecting to replace him. We sold you on that. Actually, he's back. So you get to share minutes with him. And you have no choice in the matter. Good luck with that, right? And it's a hypothetical. Every school in the country would have situations with the exact same type of conversation. In my opinion, I don't know how that would work. So for all the reasons that we just kind of laid out the last 3 or 4 minutes, that's why this feels so unlikely to go through. But in fairness, it has been the wild, wild west for years where stuff happens and there is no plan. NIL, sure. We have no plan on how we're going to regulate this. Transfer portal waivers, sure. But there's going to be no guidelines. We're going to do this at the same time also and just let it be a complete goat rodeo. And people figure it out. They're just now trying to put in place some guardrails for this. It's been years. So would it be entirely unprecedented for, something like this to go through, to magically appear and then just be like, okay, have at it? No, it would actually be very on brand for the NCAA and everything that's going on. So on one hand, I look at all the circumstances and I'm like, man, as cool as it would be, this would be a mess. So many things to consider. I don't know how they'll be able to get this done. And then I flip the coin from heads to tails and I'm like, yeah, it's actually a very NCAA thing to do. So, we'll see. I'm not expecting it, but we're going to be prepared for it, aren't we? So now that we've kind of talked about what this is, what it means and everything, let's just, for the last few minutes of the show here, let's live in a world where this does happen. And the stud market is certainly, all of a sudden it's on steroids and Arkansas is sitting there with an open spot and cash burning a hole in their pocket. Some of the big names here, the type of guys who could help you, folks, it's crazy. It's crazy. How about Zeke Mayo at Kansas? What he did for them. He was awesome at South Dakota State. Then he was at Kansas this year. He was the one transfer that popped for him. Honestly, behind Hunter Dickinson, I thought he was their best player this season. He can shoot it with volume, good backcourt option. That dude would be highly, highly coveted in the portal. I think by Arkansas and a ton of people. Malik Thomas at San Francisco. This guy's the leading scorer in the WCC, nearly 20 points per game, over 73s. I bet he could help somebody. How about Julian Reese at Maryland? The guy's been a starting power forward at Maryland for 4 years, right? Part of the Crab Five, Sweet 16 experience. He's a monster. Dude would be heavily, heavily coveted. Ian Shefflin, the same situation at Clemson. Big fella, been there forever, contributed to deep NCAA tournament runs, productive, scores it, gets on the glass. People would be all over that. Dawson Garcia at Minnesota. A 6'9" jumbo wing who can shoot threes. Averaged 19 points per game in the Big Ten this year. Jordan Longino, a guy who started at Villanova. Brandon Huntley Hatfield, the big man who played for Kenny Payne at Tennessee. There's a pretty solid role player for you. Ish Leggett, who started 2 years in a row in the backcourt, averaged over 15 points per game at Pitt. Big Eddie Lampkin, who we've talked about, who was at TCU and he was at Colorado and he's got NCAA tournament experience. He was an all ACC guy at Syracuse this past year. Big fella. Efton Reed, the 7-footer, who started his career at LSU with Will Wade, and then he was at Gonzaga, and now he's been at Wake Forest. He'd be available. Dante Maddox, a former conference player of the year who moved up to Xavier and had a big season. Jonathan Pierre from Belmont, Damari Monsanto from UTSA, two guys that we talked about in our sharpshooter segment who would really fit the mold, who would be available under these circumstances. St. Thomas over at USC, another Eric Musselman guy. Shaq Moore, a solid veteran guard who was at Kansas, dealt with some injuries, but he started for a couple years at Mississippi State. It's crazy. Jacoby Coles, who I thought was a good player at TCU, transferred over to Grand Canyon, had a really solid season, 6'8", 230 pounds, 15 points, 6 boards a game. Jalen Blackman, who John Calipari was connected to in the portal last year, who wound up going to Miami, who's a known sniper. Big Josh Gray, right? The big fella who's at, he's a crush Arkansas, South Carolina. He was at Missouri this past year. JP Pegues, shout out to Scotty, his boy from Furman, but he went to Auburn. He was just kind of buried in that backcourt. That's just some of the names who would become available if this thing went through. Just a fraction of them. I mean, like Borzella said, 43 guys who meet these qualifications, who average double figures at a power conference school this past season. So, man, the possibilities would be endless. That's all I'm saying if it wound up being the case. And we'll see what happens there. But for now, we wait. Right? We wait. Patience remains the virtue. We'll see what they do. I know some folks have been freaking out about, who was it? No Ceilings put out the mock draft that had Carter Knox as an early second round pick, like 36th overall. So everybody all of a sudden is like, oh God, he's out of here. He's gone. Just one mock. And honestly, once you get outside the lottery at this stage, it's a crapshoot. It really is. Until they start having workouts and that feedback really starts coming through and you have the combine and you get the testing and you watch the scrimmages, that's where, you start looking at those mocks and you can really start taking some stock into those second round projections and everything like that. I'm not sweating Carter now. I'm not now. If there comes a point in time where I'm starting to think, ooh, now I'm starting to worry, I'll let you know. I will. I'll be transparent about it. I'm transparent about everything. Right now, I'm not sweating Carter. But here's what I will say. Even in the off chance that he did stay in the draft and, you lost him there, Arkansas would make moves. Okay. Like they wouldn't just stand pat. They wouldn't go into the season with 7 guys or whatever it would be that they could rely on. They're looking at him to be a huge contributor, potentially their go-to guy, their leading scorer. They would go out there and supplement this roster and they would do it in a way that would satisfy you. Okay. They wouldn't just be like, oh, yeah, well, we were hoping he was coming back. He's gone. Whatever, moving on. Let's get to the season. No. Wouldn't be that, and there'd be no need to, because even without all these guys that we just talked about, the hypotheticals that, if you get lucky, might become available later in the summer, still a lot of guys out there who can help a basketball team. And you can get deeper and you can get better, and a lot of programs will. And before it's all said and done, I expect that Arkansas will do the same thing there. So anyway, we're going to get out of here. Tomorrow might be International Day. I don't know. I got to see how much time I have to get into the weeds and look into some names and get a little bit of information for you. I'm not just going to do it willy-nilly. So that might be what we do tomorrow. We'll see what kind of news, breaks between now and then, and what the big storylines are and everything. But we're going to have some roster portal recruiting type talk every single day. And like I said, we'll start mixing in some other fun stuff as we continue to move forward here in the spring and get into the summer. But appreciate you guys for tapping in as always. The show must go on and is going to continue to go on. So make sure you stay subscribed to the Inside Arkansas YouTube channel. Find us where you find your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And we'll be back tomorrow morning with another episode of the Pod at the Palace. Been Curtis Wilkerson. Y'all have a good day. We'll see you next time.